You know, I like to pride myself on being someone who can admit when he's wrong. Well, at least from a fantasy football standpoint. And even if I didn't, you could literally just go back and watch last week's video and figure it out for yourself. But we've been crushing through the first 3 weeks, absolutely cruising, until we ran into a buzzsaw by the name of Allen Robinson and Odell Beckham. And then, of course, a guy named Myles Gaskin, whose coach decided after 3 weeks that he was leading the team in all of these touches in the backfield. And then, well, he wouldn't play him at all in week 4 in one of the best matchups he's had yet. So I'm Dave Loughran with Awesemo.com. We're going to run it all back this week. Must draft, running backs, and more for week 5. Get back on the right track because we have been cruising. And then, well, we hit a brick wall, but that's all right because, as you know, I'm never giving you your first-round players to start. You don't need that type of reassurance, and I'm not going to give it to you. The truth is, fantasy football, well, it's for those of us who love it, but also understand that every single week we're playing our studs. So if that's what you're here for, this isn't for you. We're talking about guys that either aren't performing, like Jonathan Taylor wasn't performing. We nailed that last week. That's good, right? I mean, we got to find some silver lining where it is. And guys maybe that have been playing really well, but we don't know if it's sustainable. All of that wrapped up into one short video right here every single week. Let's dive into it. And before we do, hit that thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. I think like 90% of the people that watch this aren't subscribed. So it would be greatly appreciated if you hit that subscribe. Only takes a second. And that thumbs up if you enjoy this content. And of course, hit me up. Follow me on Twitter at Lofty_D. It's LOUGHY_D. Let's get it. It would be really easy to start souring on DeAndre Swift and his decreased usage in the ground game this past Sunday, even after Dan Campbell praised him and said he deserved more work. And TJ Hockenson. Well, Hockenson exploded out of the gate as the tight end 3 through the first 2 weeks of the season, but has since fallen flat in back-to-back games. That should end on Sunday when the Lions face the Vikings, who are allowing 8.7 yards per attempt to opposing passers, but also have a potent enough offense to push Detroit's passing attack into high gear. Hockenson and Swift lead the Lions in targets with 30 and 29 respectively, and have combined for 43% of the red zone targets too. Now, I'm not in love with the idea that Jamal Williams is getting more carries than Swift, but Swift still outsnapped him 73 to 30% on the week and ran 32 routes to Williams' 5. And it's not like Swift can't get back to an even split or even better with Williams. He's received 50% of the running back carries this season and 4 of them inside the 5-yard line. Even this past Sunday, both of the goal line carries went to DeAndre Swift. So while guys like Khalif Raymond and Quintez Cephas have had some surprisingly good games of late, Swift and Hockenson are clearly the best playmakers on this team, and you need to keep riding with them. Damien Harris has carried the ball a combined 10 times over the last 2 weeks, and the Patriots, despite having a rookie quarterback, are surprisingly dead last in game-adjusted rush percentage, which does not bode well for the running backs. But Sunday's road matchup against Houston is far too good for us to ignore, even with Harris's volume being way down in recent games. Consider this. Harris has faced the 2 toughest run defenses in the league over the last 2 weeks. The Bucs and Saints have stifled running backs to the tune of 2.7 and 3.1 yards per carry, respectively, and have allowed a combined 3 rushing touchdowns on the year. But in his first 2 weeks, Harris saw the league's 6th most carries against the Dolphins and the Jets. He's a massive 9.5-point favorite against the Texans team that's coughed up a league-high 8 rushing touchdowns and ranked 31st in run defense DVOA, according to Football Outsider. Davis Mills has been so ineffective, and the Texans can't generate anything on the ground, even though they'll always be playing from behind anyway, that Harris could easily get back to seeing 20-plus carries on Sunday. I had him as a must-sit in last week's video, but we're reversing course for Week 5. In the almost 3 weeks since Davis Mills has taken over, teams are averaging 36 rushing attempts per game against the Texans. That's good enough for me. Latavius Murray appears to be the clear lead back in Baltimore now. And wow, this could not have come at a better time for those of you who were dealing with injuries at running back or having to put up with plenty of disappointing seasons from guys we drafted in the middle rounds. Murray wasn't particularly efficient in Sunday's road win over Denver, but he handled 78% of Baltimore's running back carries and all 3 of the team's attempts inside the red zone, excluding one that went to Lamar Jackson. Not to mention, the Broncos have a top 5 run defense. Now, the Ravens are 7.5-point favorites against the Colts. They boast a 26.5-point implied total and have the highest game script adjusted rush percentage of any team in the league, essentially meaning they're running at the league's highest clip no matter the game situation. Sure, a lot of that has to do with Jackson's rushing volume, but the Ravens running backs are still averaging nearly 21 carries per game. And with Murray coming off a season-high 18 carries, there's real reason to believe he can do it again. Tyson Williams wasn't even active last week, so now Devonta Freeman and Le'Veon Bell will be the only backs behind Murray for week 5. Murray doesn't need to be in everyone's starting lineups, obviously, but he's a really good flex option or replacement start for anyone in need. And he has a legitimate 2-touchdown upside in this offense, even if he won't be catching passes. I got to tell you about the most ridiculous promo we have going on and will probably ever run. Partnering with Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports to give you guys 2 free months, completely free months of Awesemo Plus Platinum. That includes all of the tools that we have to offer on the site, not just for football, but for every single sport. And all of these tools, of course, created by the #1 DFS player out there, Alex Baker, Awesemo himself, who's won legitimately millions of dollars using these very tools. So go over, sign up at Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports using the link in the description, deposit $10 or more, and get $180 worth of Awesemo Plus Platinum. We'll never run anything like this again. At least I hope we don't. So take advantage of it now, and we'll catch you over there. Tyler Lockett is either going to win weeks for you or lose them. You knew that when you drafted him, though. So at this point, there's no use in trying to figure out which weeks he's going to explode or when he's going to disappear. Lockett was the wide receiver 2 over the first 2 weeks of the season and the wide receiver 74 over the last 2. Par for the course, baby. Last year, 37% of Lockett's total yards, 38% of his receptions, and an insane 80% of his touchdowns came in only 3 games. In the other 13 weeks, he was the wide receiver 50 or worse 7 times and finished outside the top 20 at his position all but twice. So yeah, there's no point in guessing when those eruption games are coming from Lockett. And week 5's matchup against the stingy Rams secondary might not look particularly appealing either. But this game boasts a 54.5 point total, and the Seahawks have a top 10 implied total on the week. So despite his inconsistencies, if you drafted Lockett, you have to keep starting him through the bad weeks. He still has a 23% target share and 38% of Seattle's air yards. Moreover, the Seahawks are playing at the league's 6th fastest pace, while on the other side, the Rams lead the league in pace in situation-neutral game scripts. So there should be fantasy points galore on Thursday night, and Lockett could be in the thick of it. You just have to keep starting him. I never thought I'd be listing Zack Moss as a must-start on a Bills offense that likes to throw the football and will have their work cut out for them against Mahomes and company. But holy shit, this Chiefs run defense is atrocious. Through 4 weeks, Kansas City is allowing, ready for this, a league worst 5.4 yards per carry and a league high 8 rushing touchdowns. Their grade on PFF and Football Outsiders is so far separated from the next worst team that it's hard to even comprehend. This showdown against the Chiefs has a week high 56.5 point total and should be a near guaranteed shootout. Kansas City's allowing over 30 points per game, and the total scores of their game this season have been 62, 71, 54, and 72. So while Josh Allen will probably be throwing quite a bit, there are just going to be too many points and yards in this game for us to overlook Moss. And how about this? Moss's 9 carries inside the 10-yard line rank 3rd in football, and he's only played 3 games. The Bills' offense is just so efficient, and the Chiefs' defense such a sieve, that Moss should be a part of the action no matter what. And he's seen 27 carries and 31 total looks over the last 2 games, of which have both been blowouts, sure, but we're playing this one for the game conditions and not for the Bills' ultra run-heavy approach. It's possible Minnesota will look to bludgeon Detroit on the ground this week, but I think we can expect some high-efficiency passing from Kirk Cousins, which should greatly benefit Adam Thielen. We haven't seen any monster yardage totals from Thielen through 4 weeks, but he's still top 15 among all wide receivers in receptions and 2nd in touchdowns behind only Cooper Kupp. Everyone's been saying for a while now, too, that Thielen can't sustain this touchdown rate, but he's picked up right where he left off at the end of 2020, and he draws the best matchup he'll get all season. The Lions are allowing an astronomical 10.6 yards per attempt and grade out dead last in pass coverage by a mile, according to PFF. Most of Thielen's opportunities are coming on short targets, but he's playing upwards of 100% snaps and has run the 5th most routes in football, so the big games will come. Thielen's 22% target share is pretty strong when you consider Cousins is throwing almost 40 times a game, especially given that 25% of all red zone targets have gone to Thielen. Minnesota's also going to see plenty of opportunities to score on Sunday, so you want to be starting Thielen wherever you can. He'll be even more enticing if Dalvin Cook isn't at full strength, which could lead to more passing near the goal line too. Corey Davis is going to have some bad weeks. That's just what happens when you play for the Jets and with a rookie quarterback, or just when you play for the Jets. But he truly couldn't ask for a better matchup than the one he'll get on Sunday against the Falcons. These two cellar dwellers will be squaring off in London in front of an unsuspecting crowd that will likely no longer have any interest in American football once this game is over, but that doesn't mean we can't still see plenty of fantasy production, believe it or not. This matchup against Atlanta is even better for the Jets than facing the Lions, because one of New York's biggest problems has been their inability to protect Wilson, who's taken the second most sacks in the league behind only Ryan Tannehill. Atlanta has the fourth fewest sacks and the second lowest pass rush grade according to PFF. So Wilson could finally have some time to throw. And he'll be throwing against the Falcons secondary that's been carved up for a league worst 11 touchdowns and a 120 passer rating. Oh, and consider this. While Davis hasn't been consistent on a week-to-week basis, he's caught 3 of Wilson's 4 passing touchdowns and literally has 60% of the Jets' 5 total touchdowns on the year. With Wilson beginning to look more comfortable and on a week where the Jets could actually move the football effectively, Davis should be in for a huge workload. We gotta start him. What if I told you that Cordarrelle Patterson was the RB3 through 4 weeks and is 7th in PPR points among all skill players? If you hadn't paid attention to football this season but knew the league pretty well, you'd call me a liar. And then I'd go on to tell you that Sam Darnold leads all of football in rushing touchdowns, which at that point you just walk away from the conversation. That's how a lot of us feel right now. Up is down, down is up, but there's really no denying how involved and how productive Patterson has been with the Falcons. Here's the crazy thing. Patterson is only playing around 30% of snaps each week, and he's only run a route on 30% of dropbacks. But he's been targeted on 36% of those routes and is averaging an absurd 4.61 yards per route run, which leads the league by a mile among all players who have run at least 20 routes, and Patterson's run 51 of them. Now, I know what you're thinking, because I'm thinking it too, that there's no way this production is sustainable. And I agree. But Patterson's seen at least 6 carries and 6 targets in 3 straight games, and targets at the running back position are so valuable, especially when he's lining up all over the field. He's second in team targets since week 2 behind only Calvin Ridley, and has seen 33% of running back carries over that span as well. So if you picked up Patterson off the waiver wire, it makes sense to keep riding this wave until it crashes, especially against the Jets. Thanks for watching as always, and be sure to head over to Awesemo.com. We got sports betting, we got fantasy football, DFS, all headed up by the #1 DFS player in the world, Awesemo himself. We'll catch you back here for the next one. Peace.